there because if we're going to change the society, we need a mass party, and it needs to be based in the working class, the immense majority of us in this country. So I think that's a premise for the start of this discussion. Now, how does the Green Party relate to this? I mean, let's be really honest. The Green Party doesn't exist because we're an effective organization. It exists because we're needed. People run up against the Democratic Party on a peace issue, an environmental issue, a community issue, a labor issue, and they get really disappointed and mad, so they say, let's run somebody as a Green. So we've got some ballot lines, but we really don't have a party organization. At the national level, we have less funding than a ghetto nonprofit that's struggling to stay alive. You know, a couple part-time people, and we call ourselves a national party. So first thing we need to do is have any kind of party, let alone a mass party. And I think the same is true for most of our states and locals. We don't have staff, we don't have storefronts, we're all kind of volunteer. And I think the way we organize sometimes makes it hard for working class people to participate. Example, long consensus-seeking meetings, retired folks that got the time kind of dominating, not opening up to the new people coming in. The kind of things an organizer keeps an eye on. I would say Greens are pretty good activists. We're reliable, we show up. In fact, we get some respect for that where we are best at it. In a lot of places, I found that out campaigning this year. But we're not organizers to know how to go out, organize, expand the base. And so I think one of the messages is we gotta learn how to organize, not just be activists. Now, I would say if we're gonna be a mass party, we gotta have an actual living, breathing membership. We can't duplicate the capitalist parties, which are top-down structures. They're based on registration in about half the states. The other states, you don't even register in a party. You just pick up the ballot at the polls. And so there is no membership that can hold the leadership accountable. What are those parties? They're shifting coalitions of entrepreneurial candidate organizations. And they go to the investors, which are the fat cats. And the investors pick the ones that are going to represent them, and they're the ones you see in the primaries and the TV ads, the whole thing. They call it the money primary before the electoral primary. So there's no real democracy there. It's a plutocracy. And we cannot duplicate that structure if we're going to challenge the system. We have to have real members that agree to our basic principles and then fund us. Nobody's going to fund us but us. Who's else going to fund us? Nobody, right? If you belong to a union, my union Teamsters, 2.5 hours wages a month. My last year, that was over $700. And I got beef with my leader, you know, Jimmy Hoffa, man. We tried to beat him 3 different elections. Long story, but I didn't mind paying my union dues. You know, the tradition of the socialist movement is you belong to your union, your co-ops, and your party. And paying dues to your party. That's an invention of the left, of the workers' movement in the latter half of the 1800s. It was a counter to the top-down structure we have of the Democrats. That's what they call in the political science literature, a caucus cadre party. Basically, before the workers got the franchise in Europe, the parties were built from the top down, Tories, Whigs in England, and rich folks would, you know, give them some money to campaign. And it's that top-down structure with no living, breathing members. And they mobilized the people who actually had the franchise. And as the workers won the franchise, they said, we need an organization to compete, we gotta pay for it ourselves, and they formed mass membership parties. And for some reason, the Greens started that in the 80s and 90s and abandoned it as we went into the 2000s. And now we're broke, we're poorly organized, and we're talking about organizing the masses, but how do you organize the masses? What do they join? You know, register Green and wait for a primary? I mean, my party voted against having a presidential primary in 2016, and then they had me run for governor, and I voted against that. And people are mad at me because they didn't get to vote in the Democratic presidential primary. I mean, that's about the only way people have to relate to us. So we need a real organization. And actually, the workshop I really want to do is with Bruce Dixon, who just passed. We did a workshop on building a mass membership party, went through the history. Bruce put it in a PowerPoint, and we were planning to present it here and some other places. But that's online on YouTube. I suggest people look that up. Since that workshop we gave in Houston, the last nominating convention, a lot of people have picked up on that, and we are moving toward that in a lot of states. I think we got to keep moving that way. So we have a structure in which the masses can participate. Another question that Linda put in the prospectus for this workshop is, how do we build a working class culture that working people feel comfortable in, and basically how do we diversify? And I would say we need to hire people coming out of the labor movement, labor union organizers, or the community organization movement, who know how to organize, who know the tricks, how to do a one-on-one interview, who know that you don't go in proselytizing like a missionary. If you're trying to build relationships, you go in and listen and find out what other people are doing and how you can help them. And once you got the trust, then you can talk about your politics and your stuff. I mean, I don't think Greens do that. Or we table and we sit back there with our phone waiting for somebody to initiate conversation instead of being out in front and buttonholing people. I mean, there are so many things organizers know that we don't, on average, around the Green Party movement. So we get a mass membership that's paying dues, and we can hire some organizers to help us all become organizers. I think that's key. And then, finally, some people say, well, the Green Party is environmental, we need a Labor Party. And I believe we got a vacuum in both areas. We need a green Labor Party or a green Socialist Party. We need a party to fill both vacuums, because the Democrats are a fully capitalist party, and those elements that say they're pro-labor are a minority. The Bernie Sanders or the AOCs. They're a minority. They make the Democrats look better than they are. They lose out. They're not going to give us Medicare for all. They're not going to give us a Green New Deal. They're not doing labor law reform. Obama promised it and then forgot about it when he got elected, the card check thing. We go on and on and on about that. It was in the Democratic platform to remove the section of Taft-Hartley that allowed right-to-work states and block secondary boycotts. They never passed it, even when they had majorities in Congress. They are not a labor party. So I think, and this is my last point, the Greens, those of us who have labor backgrounds, those of us who want to support labor organizing, we need a labor caucus. And, I was involved in the Labor Party effort in the 90s. And now some of the leaders of that, like Mark Dudzik and Adolph Reed, say, well, they got the 10% solution. We'll have a labor party when 10% of the national unions are ready to back it. And my 10% solution is they will start coming to us when the Green Party or whatever party we form on the left is getting 10% of the vote for president and Congress and Senate, and then they're going to have to start paying attention to us. In the meantime, we should be organizing in the movements. I think a model for us is Labor for Bernie, because they fought in some of those unions like IBEW to get a rank and file vote on endorsements. That's something Greens as a labor caucus could really fight for in our unions. And so our candidates would get a fair hearing, because right now in most unions it's the staff and the officers, and they're playing footsie with the Democrats who, let's be honest, the staff and officers, I don't care if they were workers before, by the time they're in a middle class position, they're mediating between us and management, and their peers are the same people in the Democratic Party. And that's a problem, so we got to organize rank and file. And I've used up my time, but I'll be looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Okay, our second speaker today is a guest, and we're very happy to have him. His name is Jerry Levinsky. And Jerry is the current SEIU Local 509 field representative for the Springfield, Massachusetts area, and a representative of the Labor Community Campaign for an Independent Political Party. He was the past field representative of SEIU Local 509 for Holyoke, Massachusetts. He was the associate director of the New York State Teachers Association. Nurses Association, and has been a lecturer at the University of Massachusetts. He attended Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey, and has a Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy. So I'd like to introduce Jerry to you.
Thank you very much, folks. Boy, I'll tell you, trying to follow Howie Hawkins is really something else. I'd like to just say it's really an honor to be on the panel with Howie. And I want to thank Linda for inviting me. This is the first time I've been to a panel like this and a conference like this, so I just appreciate the invitation. I appreciate those kind words also. I'm I'm the son of a shoe salesman and a secretary and a grandson of immigrants from Russia who spent their lives in factories, garment factories in New York City. So as the first person who went to college, it sounds impressive to me that I have all that education behind me. It's pretty good. You know, I don't really have a lot that I can add to what Howie has already brought out. What struck me about what was being said, what you said, Howie, is that there's a context here that's important for us, I think, to remember right at the outset, which is that it's not a coincidence that we're in the situation that we're in. It's not a coincidence that we are that the masses of people in this country are as marginalized in the political mainstream as we are, right? It's the result of a number of different things, not the least of which is 40 years of an ongoing and deepening attack on the interests of working people in this country. Right? I mean, we have the weakest labor movement of any advanced country in the world. We're down to about 11% density. It's a very, very low percentage of working people that are actually members of unions. We have spent, for most of us who have been around any period of time, we spent most of our lives watching just era after era of deepening attacks on organized labor and on workers and on unions. And we're now seeing the results of that. We're seeing also the context of that politically. We're the only advanced country in the world that does not have a workers' party. With all of the challenges of some of the Western European labor parties looking more like our Democratic Party than not, their roots of those parties are in fact workers' parties, right? Not mainstream electoral parties like our Democratic Party. How did that happen? Well, it happened in part as a result of the Cold War. It happened as a result of the fact that we came out of World War II with a profoundly militant, progressive, activist labor movement that was so successful during the 1930s and the early 1940s, in combination with an engaged and militant socialist party and communist party, that we had created enough political pressure on the mainstream Democratic Party and the Roosevelt administration to create a New Deal, right? To create a New Deal, something that was a concession by the Roosevelt administration to the power and militancy of millions of working people through their unions around the country, right? And as soon as that process started, the counterattack by corporations in this country started even quicker and more aggressively. And that took a start right after World War II with the development of the Cold War, and it continued decade after decade leading into the 1970s, and then the so-called Reagan Revolution, which has been this right-wing counterattack that's led us down the road that we've been on the last 30 plus years, right? So how do we reverse that? I mean, I think, you know, Howie's question about the importance of grounding ourselves and developing a party that is not one of the two corporate parties. And make no mistake about it, they are both parties of corporations and the wealthy. That's who funds them. That's where their policy development comes from. There's nothing all that new and exciting with regards to these policy initiatives that are emanating. The answers to the questions of the problems that we have in this society is not really what our challenge is. It's the power to be able to administer and enforce and to see those policies made real for the people of this country. That's the challenge that I think we have. In 2013, a number of folks from around the country, trade unionists from around the country, joined and developed an organization called the Labor Fight Back Network. Okay, the Labor Fight Back Network came into existence with a primary goal of moving the labor movement of this country, which was deeply co-opted and continues to be deeply co-opted in the mainstream with regards to its leadership in most of the major unions, into the Democratic Party, right? It's a corporatist labor movement in much of its leadership. And as a result of that, it's a top-down leadership. in most unions, as Howard points out with regards to the Teamsters, but it's not just the Teamsters. It's all of the big major unions, you know, you could speak of, right? And as a result of that, there is a deepening divergence between the interests of millions of rank and file workers, organized and unorganized, and the leadership of this country. We've seen that played out in a really exciting way in the Red for Ed movement over the last year, where you've seen rank and file, unorganized teachers in red states, non-union states, states that are hostile to unions and have Taft-Hartley based legislation making unions illegal, going out on strike and effectively increasing the conditions for themselves and for the students in their states. That kind of action is at the core of what the Labor Fight Back Network believes is necessary to reinvigorate the labor movement of this country from the bottom up, from working people bottom up. The work of the Labor Fight Back Network resulted in the development of a new entity in this last year called the Labor Fight Back Labor Community Campaign for an Independent Party. Okay, it's as we discussed briefly, there was a Labor Party movement, short-lived in the mid-1990s. It's very, very difficult. I mean, the work that the Green Party has done in being able to get ballot access across the country is in and of itself pretty amazing, and presents a tremendous opportunity for all of us with regards to the meaningfulness of that, because access is not so easy to get. But there's a basic question that has to be answered, and maybe we can spend some time in discussion. I don't want to keep talking much more. But the question is, how can we utilize the fact that despite its weaknesses, the labor movement of this country still constitutes approximately 14 million people. The labor movement, the unions of this country, still constitute the greatest wealth of resources in terms of people power, in terms of money power, in terms of political power, in terms of being able to mount a genuine fight back to the forces that we're dealing with in this country today. Okay? And so the three basic objectives of the Labor Community Campaign for an Independent Party, I'm going to read those to you, and then I think what I'll do is stop there and we can open up the discussion, are the following. The first objective is to promote the running of independent labor community candidates beginning in 2019. Let me try that again. So the first objective is to promote the running of independent labor community candidates beginning in 2019 at a local and state level around a platform that embraces workers and communities' pressing demands. The explicit aim is to advance the effort to build a mass party for working people rooted in unions, youth, and the communities of the oppressed. The platform of these independent candidates needs to be discussed and approved by labor community assemblies, and the candidates must be answerable to these assemblies and to the coalitions formed for this purpose. The second objective is to promote widely in the labor movement, the trade union movement, a committee that advocates for a labor-based political party. A resolution was adopted at the October 2017 National Convention of the AFL-CIO. Many people don't know this, but it's really important, where it was affirmed that, quote, whether the candidates are elected from the Republican or Democratic Party, the interests of Wall Street have been protected and advanced, while the interests of labor and working people have generally been set back. Okay? A second convention resolution concluded that the time has passed when we can passively settle for the lesser of two evil politics. This is actually a historically significant statement coming out of the 2017 AFL-CIO convention. If one understands that the AFL-CIO, created by the merger of the CIO, the Congress of Industrial Organizations, the great militant industrial labor movement of the 1930s, 7 million people organized into unions in less than a 10-year period, without question, the most significant mass movement in the history of the United States, the CIO, okay? That merger, as a result of the dismantling, the attacks on organized labor in 1955, lead to an AFL-CIO that has been, for the most part, completely co-opted into corporatist mainstream politics and wed to the Democratic Party. So that this statement in 2017, I believe, is really historically significant. And third, that the committee's goal will be to promote the discussion inside the labor movement about the need to break with the lesser of two evil politics and to create a labor-based political party. a reference to the title of a forum organized by key labor officials at the October 2017 AFL-CIO convention. In order to create such a mass party for working people, we were organized to raise awareness in the unions and the need to break from the Democratic Party. So these three objectives passed last year in the creation of the labor campaign for an independent party, I think go to the heart of building from the ground up mass movement of working people grounded in the unions of the United States. And my closing point is, I don't see any of this to be in conflict with the goals and aspirations as I understand them of the Green Party. I think it's a necessary component of us moving forward. So thank you very much.
Okay, I've been advised that our third speaker, Sherry Honkala, is currently driving through Salem on her way here. So let's hope that she just can find the building and the room in time. So I will go next. My name again is Linda Thompson, and I'm currently in Framingham, Massachusetts, and part of forming a new chapter of the Green Party on the west side of Boston. So that's exciting, but since I'm not being introduced, I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. Currently, I'm a member of Metro West Peace Action Committee and the Mass Peace Action organization in Boston. I came out of the civil rights movement where I went to jail in the South, and I was the coordinator of the anti-war coalition in Boston during the height of the anti-war movement against the war in Vietnam. So that's my experience of having been in a mass movement. And it's quite a bit different for our youth today that are just beginning to see the stirrings again of mass movements. And then I went through the union movement, American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, as a state worker for a number of years. And then I got a master's in sociology and became a professor of sociology at Southern Connecticut State University. I'm an artist and a feminist, and very much concerned about those areas of my life. So the idea of this was to, in my opinion, this workshop is to elevate our thinking on our role. I have always maintained that the ruling class is far more afraid of us and appreciates the threat we pose more than the left does. And I also am very aware that as far as most of the left or so-called socialist organizations have not lent their support to building an independent political party. They sit around and they talk about it and they dream about it, but they don't do it. And then when we're doing it and we don't get their support, I get very upset. And I think we have to confront them on that and say, you know, this isn't pie in the sky off somewhere 10 years down the line when we get the criteria of working class people or whatever. You know, it's now. It's up to us. We can't wait for some other leadership to come along. So since it's up to us, I just want to throw out some ideas for discussion. One, I think we need unity. There are people forming black parties now. This Jerry is here representing a whole group of union people that are forming a labor party. We have to start collaborating on independent political action. Now, Left Elect, some of you may have been aware of that formation, a few years ago started unifying all the people who wanted independent candidates to run against the Democrats and Republicans. And it was very successful. Socialist Alternative was in it, ISO was in it, we were in it, and a smattering of other people, independent parties, and it kind of fell apart, but it was a good idea. And it's still needed, this collaboration of all the people who want to run left of the Democratic Party and not in the Democratic Party like DSA, need to get together and support each other because we have common needs and goals. One, we have the need of instant runoff voting. We need that to build any kind of a third party or independent politics. Those campaigns are starting. We have a focus on it here at the A&M. Everybody should attend that and start working on that in your area. We have to support that campaign. Secondly, I feel we have to reach out and scandalize and blackmail the liberals. We don't do that. We kind of let them be their own thing. Now, let me tell you, in the 60s, we used to blackmail the liberals to get them into the anti-war movement. We confronted them, we built independently, and we embarrassed them if they didn't come along with us for out now. So, there are some key issues. One is incident runoff voting. The other is paper ballots. Democratic elections in particular and in general. And we want to confront them on fair ballot access laws. Why are we have to spend all our money after 20 years of being a party? Why do we have to prove ourselves all the time collecting signatures? This is outrageous. We've been like beat up leftists taking this bullshit when they have no right to do that to us. They don't have to petition. And the liberals just say, oh, you know, that's not our problem. We're going to call you a spoiler in the next election, but we aren't going to do a damn thing to help you get a democratic election process. Okay, that's another whole area. I think we have to take the spoiler argument on. I see there's a workshop here. We need material to get out on that. Take a position, be aggressive on that. What do you mean spoiler? The Democrats keep spoiling the elections for the Green Party. I'm sorry. And start saying that. Start using that as a slogan. Now, the last part, Howie mentioned fundraising. Everybody has to be a fundraiser. Everybody has to have a fundraising workshop and class. You don't like it, you don't want to do it, but I'm sorry, you've got to do it. And there are trainers that will come in who don't have to be Green Party members to train us how to do fundraising. And everybody has to attend that, not just a little crew of people who say, I volunteered to be a fundraiser. No, everybody has to be a fundraiser. With the goal of having better finances, we could have a national staff. We should have a goal of having state staff, headquarters in every single state. Maybe we can't get to a chapter offices yet, but that has to be how we're thinking. I was in a small socialist party in the 60s that had a headquarters in every major city and had a full-time organizer in every major city. And the organization never had more than 2,000 members. How did they do it? They coughed up the money. They got working jobs and they donated not only dues, but pledges. And if you aren't willing to give to this party, stop trying to organize it. Do you want to build it or not? And if you want to build it, you have to cough up some more money than this poverty mentality that we have. You know, when you get a state report that we've got $2,000 in the kitty, come on, really, let's start thinking large. Okay, I would like to see us have more working class goals in the sense that we have to make people who are working and probably have families, feel more comfortable in this party. Thinking in terms of meeting times, how we greet them. If you're in the union movement, there's a different culture than the left. And people are more friendly and they thank you when you do something and you give credit to your people who sacrifice. That kind of thing. We have to learn more of that culture. As far as becoming diverse, read the book White Fragility. Have anybody heard of that now? Mm-hmm. White Fragility?
Yeah.
My church reads White Fragility. And I was thinking, if my church can read White Fragility and look at their own white privilege, so they understand how we as whites turn people of color off, then certainly the Green Party can do it. And it's a very important book, very educational, and it's worth a study. Secondly, read Black culture, read Latinx history, read Native American culture and history. So we get over this thing of when you're in a predominantly white organization, you are oblivious to how people of color feel within that organization. And we have to learn that, become sensitive to there are different ways of doing things in different cultures. The last thing I'd like to see, whoever our presidential candidate is that we go to all the areas that are hit, the working class areas like the Gulf. Go to California to the fire victims. Go to Sandy victims in New York. Go to all these areas. Go to Puerto Rico. There's struggles going on in Hawaii now. We have to have our presidential candidates there on the border with the immigrants who are suffering in the detention camps. That's another suggestion. And I think that it might be good for us to move to a having one annual meeting every other year, and the intervening year have regional conferences, because not everybody can get to our meetings. And there's a real value in sitting down with other Greens and struggling with these issues. So I think I'll end there and open it up for discussion. If Sherry comes, then we will be glad to have her make her remarks. I hope she gets here. We have a person who has volunteered to be on the stack. And Lois will be taking a stack. Why don't we do 6 or 7 at a time?
Yeah, that sounds
And
good.
we'd like to encourage everybody to stay to 2 minutes, because we'd rather have a broad discussion.
Okay, so and when you speak, could you introduce who you are and where you're from? So 1, 2, 3,
You got one behind you.
4, 5, 6.
No, just.
I guess that's 6. So, go ahead, Ailey.
Can people stand when they speak? It'll be easier to hear.
I don't.
He can't stand that in, so that's okay.
It's a request, and if people can, so.
My name is Eli Yarden. I supported myself as an industrial worker from the age of 18 and continued for at least another 25 years. I was always a union member, and it's very hard for me to understand where the working class base that existed in the United States is now. Most of the union members in Massachusetts are members of the civil service unions that are set up because it makes negotiating with them easier. So the role of labor unions in Massachusetts, excuse me, as a young man, I used Westfield dyes. This is tools and dyes. This is to me, this whole thing seems like a dream of the past. Where is the working class? Where is the working class in Massachusetts? Massachusetts is an example of a deindustrialized state. There are cities in Massachusetts which have been abandoned because industry went elsewhere. So I'm not at all clear about this concept of a working class party or a party that relies on working class participation. My union experience is also an experience of Gomperism, and the CIO was as infected with Gomperism as easily as the AFL. So I wish you would address that problem. Howie.
Who's second?
I think I am.
You're number 2? Okay.
So I want to thank all of the people who has been speaking, wonderful ideas, but I just want to add one more thing. Why should people join and become part of our membership party? You know, it's expanding our membership, paying dues. Why should they? I mean, we have some reasons. The catastrophe that we're faced with is there, crying out for solutions. We have a vision, and we have candidates. But what I don't see, which is absolutely essential, is a political program. We have a national party. What are our national issues? We don't have any. I'm with the Greater Boston chapter of the Green Rainbow Party. We don't have any statewide priorities. We don't have any local priorities. I know some states, I hope, are doing better than us, but we should be, take a leadership as we have in terms of ideas, but fighting for these things. Eco-socialism. How could that be a vehicle to mobilize people? The Green New Deal. That idea comes from us. But that was stolen by the Dems because we didn't take a lead on it. I mean, there's no lack of all the things we could be working on, but we need to have, we need to be on the streets, we need to be moving, and we need to provide reasons why people should join and then pay dues.
Okay, number 3.
I'm going to stand, and I hope other people will, because I do have trouble hearing. The question I want to ask, I can imagine a scenario in this country where there's all of a sudden a transformation of the political situation and workers organizing and a mass working class party comes into existence full blown, right? We can imagine. I've been in organizations that have been imagining that for about 40 or 50 years. But it's unlikely that it's going to happen that way. So the question I want to pose is, can we find some incremental goals, some things that we can set that are realistic for ourselves and achieve on the road, on the way to that? And one example I'm going to use is Howie's campaigns in New York. I'm from New York. I think one of the reasons the Green Party in New York has been as successful as it has in maintaining itself and recruiting people is because every 4 years we can set ourselves a goal of 50,000 votes for governor and realistically strive to meet that goal. And it's a real achievement. It's something that we do, that we achieve, that we accomplish, and we can say to other people, here is a reason to support the Green Party, because we can make a difference in the political realities of New York State every 4 years without electing a governor. Okay, so that's my question. Can anyone in the room suggest interim steps, goals, measures that we can set for ourselves that will achieve that some level of success?
Number 4?
Yeah, hi, Mike Feinstein, Santa Monica, California. I served 8 years on the Santa Monica City Council, 2 years as mayor, with backing from hotel employees and restaurant employees union in Santa Monica, 814 and 11. And when I was mayor, we passed the first private sector living wage ordinance in the country, primarily to cover our luxury hotels who were employing Latin American maids and other hotel workers, and our public parks and police were being paid for by our bed tax based on underpaid and exploited hotel workers. So we made that argument, and it worked well when I was in office. A couple of quick points. In the early 90s, there was a group called the Labor Party Advocates There was the 21st Century Party, started by the National Organization for Women, and there was the New Party, which ended up evolving into Working Families. We're the only ones who still exist. So we're not very famous, we're a bunch of schmoes, you know, we're just regular activists, there's almost nobody famous with us, but we are the ones who actually persisted, and that's something where we should take some hope from, because there's a lot of big people in those other movements, and they went away. Number two, we're going to succeed as a party when we get proportional representation elections. Ranked choice voting is great for single seats. We need full PR. I ran for Secretary of State in California last year to promote that. I just want to touch on the funding issue, finally, and Howie and I have gone back and forth on the dues versus no dues, and I don't want to debate that, but what we failed to do on the national level, and why our funding, I believe, is so pathetic on the national level, is unlike practically every other Green Party in the world, we do not have specific designated national spokespeople who are dedicated to that task. And most parties have a gender-balanced team of 2 individuals as Green Party spokespeople. When we're doing press, we have no press presence, and it's hard for us to fundraise without any real public visibility. Our structure has a 9-member administrative steering committee who has to run the administration of our party, also being our spokespeople. One, those are different skills, and you don't want to try and find them both in one person and expect one person to do both of them. Better, we should move, and many years ago, this idea surfaced, and it was supposed to have some money attached with it, so our people, if they could fly to be on a talk show somewhere or something else, and our budget was so bad because we were under our post-2004 austerity years that we didn't move ahead. I think that is going to do better for us on financing than all these other issues.
That's it?
No. Who was next?
You were.
What numbers were y'all?
We're on number 5.
Five. I'm number
right,
6.
5.
I won't stand. Mahan from Massachusetts. 2 things came to mind. One was I'm relatively new to the Green Party. Many of you have been part of it for decades. Myself, only a couple of years. What I found is that the Green Party is wonderful as much as I love it, for sure, philosophically and otherwise, is that the process of getting things done is very gummed up.
Yeah.
And it's gummed up with, I'm a philosopher by education and career. It's gummed up by philosophy. But in a good way. These discussions are needed, in fact, more so than ever in this time. But I think we have to separate the discussions that need to happen, the creative thinking, the problem solving, brainstorming, has to be separated from organizational structure. Because the organizational structure is, Massachusetts, our organizational structure could be better. Our organizational structure is also gummed up with ideas that need to be talked about and understood before we start to implement them. But there's no space for that. So we come together in a meeting. It's supposed to be an organizational meeting to get something done, but then the issue is like, well, we haven't talked about that. I disagree. And then we have to shelve the issue, not do anything about it. 6 months later, it comes up again because we have to do something about it. So we need space for both. If we don't have an organizational structure, we'll need that. And then we need a space where we can just vent. We need to vent, to share, to creatively brainstorm. And that leads into my second point is, I love you, Linda, but I think we should have the A&M is a godsend for a forum for brainstorming. I'm a part of a religious organization that is worldwide, and they assemble once a year in one place, members from all over the world. And it was brief.
Saying every other year.
I think it should be every year, because they were talking about the same thing. It's too much for people from South America to get all the way to Asia, and they were right. But even the people who had the hardest time getting there said, please keep it every year, because it becomes a source of such, it can be, now it has to be created, but it can be a source of incredible empowerment to come together once a year and see people from all kinds of backgrounds struggling with the same policy issues, how to do this, how to do that, and brainstorm. And let the states do their organizational structure that is suited to their states. So I understand the difficulty getting here. I'm part of the organizing committee to get this happening in Massachusetts, and many people could not get here in Massachusetts. So, and that comes to fundraising. We have to get fundraising. I mean, what do we talk? That's the lifeblood of the body that is the Green Party. And I will stop there.
Okay, thank you. How many more do you
There
have?
was the 6, and then you're number 6. Okay.
I'm Tina Rocket from Virginia, and I have 3 observations. Number 1 is the dues. I'm not against it whatsoever, but I need a template. And how do you get people to pay dues when you can barely get someone to come and join your party? Now, my point is we are in pivotal times right now. The pivotal times themselves are going to make or break pretty soon in 2020. Bernie is on his last leg. A whole bunch of Berners, including me, I was a state representative for Bernie at the time, are going to come to the Green Party. If they don't come to the Green Party, then we might can stop and just eat bonbons because the world is burning and it's going to burn down. Okay, so we really have to think positively. Don't look to the past, because this is not like the past anymore. We're out of time for the climate. We've never been out of time for the climate before. So the dues thing, that sounds great, but we need to, I think the pivotal times are going to help us with that. And like Mike said, the IRB. But I want to say that something we can do right this minute is ballot image preservation with public audits. If anyone is familiar with that, those are things we can do right this minute. As a matter of fact, the election corporations that own our electronic machines are so upset that we figured out that you can get transparency with these voting machines. They are rapidly trying to get people to go back to DREs. So we all need to get into our elector offices and insist that they maintain and save ballot images, and they do not replace digital scanners with DREs. That's something we can do right now, and when our vote counts, we can get IRB. But this is something we can do immediately. Ballot image preservation with public audits right now. If you don't know about it, I have some information with me that I can give you. And the thing about the party, the Union Workers Party, how are they any different, the folks that have been propping up the Democratic Party? What made them suddenly decide that they're tired of getting all that money from the Democratic Party at the national level? And how could their platform possibly differ better than the Green Party's platform for labor workers and union workers? I don't see how they could come up with a better platform than the Green Party's platform. So basically, thank you, basically to me, it is reinventing the wheel and taking us backwards. And this makes me think of Democratic sheepdog organizations and NGO industrial complex, big green complex, and is this now going to be the union industrial complex that's trying to co-opt another party, which we don't have time to start another party. We've already got one that's union. So that's my 3 points.
We have one more speaker, is that right, in the back?
Yeah.
Okay, and then I'd like to introduce Jerry to us, okay?
Sarah Mae Williams, I'm from Arizona, Tucson, Arizona. And actually, I like the paying the dues, and I'll tell you why. Because in Tucson right now, we're fighting to become a sanctuary city, and it's a citizen-led initiative. And one of the things that we realize is that there's so many people, undocumented people, who can't be a part of any party. But we want them to be a part of our party.
That's right.
So we have tons of people in this country that have no voice, and this is a way to invite them in the door at $1 a piece, whatever, per month. So that's why we do the dues thing, because we actually have someone who is in our party right now who is undocumented, and I don't care. I'll fight. I'll go to court to keep him there because he's an awesome organizer, totally part of the labor movement as well, and we need to tap into everybody. You know, we're giving him a voice, we're giving him a platform, we're giving a platform to anybody who needs it. It could be also used for those who've been unfairly incarcerated. You know, give them a voice. There's a lot of people out there that don't have any avenue to say what's going on in their own communities. And so we have to look at it differently. Even being Native American from the reservation, you know, we've always been here. We have a lot of, we have sovereignty, and yet we don't. You know, when I go to the organizations in Tucson to try to say what I need done for my community, nobody listens. So a lot of times it's like, oh, you're the other Native American that comes around and wants things done. Yeah, because not enough of us have that door open to us. And so our party has to open the door to everybody and not be afraid to do that. So we have to look at it differently. And so I don't know, it's just you gotta start looking at your community and seeing that there's a lot of people there that have no voice, and then open that door and get them involved, because those people are fighters. They want to be here. They want to be here. They want to see things happen for their communities, and yet nobody wants to open the door to anybody. So let's be that party that does that. And thank you.
I'd like to introduce Sherry, who has come. Finally, good. I'm glad you're here. Sherry, a lot of you know, was a candidate of the Green Party for vice president, and right now she is a founder and a leader of the Poor People's Economic Human Rights Campaign. And before that, the Kensington Welfare Rights Organization. Gained fame when she was a homeless mother, breaking into abandoned government-owned houses and occupying them in order to survive. She's traveled internationally to meet with peasant movements and ran for vice president of the USA, as I said, for the Green Party in 2012. She also works as a UPS warehouse graveyard shift and is active in Teamsters Local 623 Lives Matter. Sherry's a founding general in the Poor People's Army.
Just real quickly, you can go like this. If you're a member of the Poor People's Army or the Poor People's Economic Human Rights Campaign, I just like to give shouts out when I see people. Yeah, okay. There we go. All right. Okay, so, yeah, I've been told I've got 5 seconds. So, no, I'm just kidding. I will talk as fast as I possibly can. You know, we apologize for the traffic on the Northeast Corridor. It was insane. We left at like, 7 o'clock this morning. But anyway, so, in my journey, even though I'm very young, it's been a long journey over like the last 30 some years, about how do we become a mass party? And how, well, one, we make ourselves look like the rest of the country. That's a good start. And secondly, I think that you never, you don't get people into the party by beating them over the head, telling them how backward they are, and how, here's the politically correct statement, Pastor Collins, you have to sign before you can join, that kind of thing. You take people where they're at, and just like something that's being born, you take them along on that journey, and you help them be the fullest, amazing human being that they could possibly be in that process. And, I was one of the founding members of the Labor Party with Tony Mazzocchi and various different folks, and, went through that experience. And I agree. I don't think that we're at a stage in this country where we need to create something totally new, throw away all the history and the amazing work and the experience and the structure of the Green Party. But we do have to, bring it back to life. And my advice would be that we focus on the people that majority of the people are not talking to. And I would say that those are poor people that are in poor communities, which you can recruit in 10 seconds. You hire low-income folks in every state, local party for 5 cents. You hire people. You don't get into this long conversation about first we must pay this person a living wage. No. this person is desperate. They want to be able to get out there. They want to organize the party. They're happy that they can eat today, whatever. They knock on the door and they register and they join the party. And the other thing is that, you know, not just where the poor are, but, you know, in every plant across this country, and definitely UPS, where you have low-wage workers that are supposedly a part of organized labor that are living on $13 an hour and get less than $125 a week. So there's lots of different places that you can go. And I would also say young people and youth, or our seniors and nursing homes. But the key to the story is we can't just be online. We have to be out there. We have to knock on the doors. We have to sit. We have to develop the relationships. And with relationships comes memberships. And gone are the days. I've never gone anywhere. If you've watched me for like the last 30 years, which God, I know you haven't, but if you had, you would see someday I will like to go someplace alone. But you know, I just don't go and participate. No, you have to bring people with you. I don't go anywhere unless I'm bringing people with me. I never go any place by myself, and I always look like the Rainbow Coalition. You will never see me show up someplace where A, I look like the Rainbow, we look like the Rainbow Coalition, and two, where I'm by myself. And if we just begin to institute that, you know, those basic things as a party, we're going to be able to grow and look like the rest of the country. And I think a great campaign, not that I'm going to be self-promotional, yes I am, is, you know, bring a boot camp. We're building the Poor People's Army, okay? The Poor People's Army is, you know, we just think that we're running out of time. You'll hear about that more if you go to Extinction Rebellion's workshop tomorrow. But we are organizing, we are always in a campaign style of organizing. So we always got something coming up. We always got a reason that we're mobilizing. And that's just good organizers. So yes, that's why we've been able to organize the largest marches going all the way back to 2004 on opening days of both the Republican and the Democratic National Conventions. And so we're in Milwaukee, opening day. You know, we're gonna make sure that we meet with all the key players in here. I'm looking at you, anybody that's from Wisconsin. But we've always organized the largest marches on opening day, and we're gonna do it again. So we know that we're gonna see all of you on opening day, July 13th, and this time, you're not gonna be there by yourself, because you're gonna have the largest delegation on opening day of the Democratic National Convention in Milwaukee. And Dave is gonna make sure we have all place to sleep, and I'm just kidding.
Madison, but yeah.
Yeah, Madison,
talk to
okay.
Barb.
Barb is gonna make sure we have a place to sleep anyway. So, you know, just, we're always trying to figure out how to grow and build. And anything that we do, I don't care if it's the best policy in town that's designed or whatever you're doing, if you're not busy building and growing, you're busy dying. And so whatever it is that you're doing, you have to look at that. And that's how we're gonna build a mass party. We're gonna build a mass party when we're about the business of building and growing. And then when we have like massive people, then we've got a great problem. But if we're gonna micromanage relationships and figure out who's gonna be the most politically correct, and you know, who in the hell brought styrofoam cups to the meeting, we are gonna stay this big. You know, because people are just not bad, we're just not innately bad people. People have to learn things. And so, yeah, so those are my 2 cents. And in terms of organized labor, the faith community, I'm coming at them. Because that's what people want this next period, because they know we're out of time, and they know unless we represent courage, we are the same as all these other sheepdogs that are out there. We are no different. So we have to build an independent, new political alignment. So it's no more like, God bless you, Pastor, you're wonderful. Now it's like, God bless you, love you, Pastor, but where do you get your money?
What money?
Where you got it hidden because you're in the faith community. It's no longer about that. And it's the same with organized labor. Yes, I am not anti-labor, but guess what? I'm gonna fight you tooth and nail. I might be the only one sitting in the room, but I'm gonna organize a separate little caucus and a discussion about how we're just puppets of the Democratic Party. So we can no longer afford to have those relationships anymore. The same with every progressive nonprofit industrial complex progressive organization in this country. It's no longer like, oh, we've got the same progressive rhetoric, especially in the environmental community. That's it.
Okay. What I'd like to do is have the speakers just respond to some of the questions that were raised quickly. Howie?
Well, very quickly, because basically we're out of time.
Right.
Ellie asked, where'd the working class go? Working class was never majority industrial workers in this country or in the world. Service workers and farm workers were a big part of it. The industrial working class is in China, Mexico, Vietnam, Bangladesh, and the working class is international. We need to organize across boundaries. So, without a lot of time, I'll just sort of throw that out there for thought. Let me go to the money question. There was a couple people said, why should people give money and join if there's nothing going on? Obvious point and right on point, right on point. So obviously, but I just want to conclude by saying we're sitting on a gold mine. You know, the union movement in this country is really at its low ebb. In the private sector, what is it? It's less than 6%.
Yes, it is.
That's less than it was in the 1920s. I mean, we are really in trouble. Yet, and including public sector, our dues as union members amounts to $6 billion. That's why Jerry's saying there's nothing else on the progressive side. Well, maybe Soros, but you know, they're very compromised there. But
progressive.
yeah, well, in any case, a mass organization. Now, there are about 250,000 people in this country who are registered green or pick up the green ballot, right? So do a little math. Sherry and I as Teamsters pay 2.5 hours dues a month. She said 13. I did the math with 15, which is the minimum wage that we used to fight for. I'm saying 20 now, but let's use 15. So 2.5 hours is $42.50 a month contribution. These are low-wage workers. 250,000 times $42.50 times 12 months a year comes to $128 million a year. That should be the budget of the Green Party, not 1,280 or whatever the hell it is.
First, it's great to meet you, Sherry. And Sherry, I should also add, was one of the founding members of Labor Fight Back Network, and you were at the 2013 conference at Rutgers. I don't know if you remember that. But,
I remember everything.
Yeah, but I remember meeting you back then. And you know, the questions that folks are asking about, I agree. It's certainly not a matter of going back or reinventing or reimagining some idealized, you know, class-conscious expression of what our politics could be or might be or ought to be. But I think that the point that I'm really trying to make is that working people in this country, a majority of whom are not in unions, right, have to in their lives. And I think some of the questions that folks were asking really got to this point. People have to engage in their lives. We have to change what it means to be in community with each other. And it needs to change quickly, and it needs to change with leadership coming from different places. The Green Party, progressive forces within the labor movement included. But what we need to do is build grassroots, community-based movement and community-based coalitions that engage folks in the faith community, engage folks in the anti-poverty movement, engage just folks across the board. But I do believe that a grounding in or genuine engagement with, and I love, Sherry, what you were saying about calling out, you know, the
Poor
pathology.
People's Campaign,
Yeah,
the
the Poor People's Campaign, but calling out the pathology of the relationship with the Democratic Party, I mean, I think that that's really important. I think that that principle needs to become real. That there is a pathology, there is something really sick and toxic about the dynamic that we're in, and it needs to be called out in a non-aggressive way, in a respectful way, but it needs to be called out because we are in this situation of just sickerly creating a situation that is out of control. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, I just want to say just a few things before we close. One is we've got to get back to believing in what we are and what we're doing in our history. We have, all the other left attempts have fallen apart. Give yourself credit. We have maintained our position against war for that entire time when everybody else saying. And if you don't think our platform is a gold mine, think again. Think again and get confrontational and have confidence in yourself and go out there and take our place in history where we belong. We have been beat up so much we forgot who we are. And just remember it.
Can I say and to piggyback on that, not only are we an amazing party, we are still standing there after getting our ass whooped over and over and over again. Because it would be great if it was just our failure at not organizing the right way. They understand how powerful we are and how we are done and conscious that we need more than policy changes, that we need a system change. And so they know, because we're so conscious, we're dangerous.
That's right.
So they do things like they set up other fake movements. They do this with the environmentalists, right? Here's the real environmental movement over here. Or here's the real poor people's movement, which I have to just draw attention to this. We are not the Poor People's Campaign. We are the Poor People's Economic Human Rights Campaign. We are not, Reverend Barber's a great individual, but we receive no money from corporations or the bad guys. That's the difference between the two campaigns, all right? So it'd be great to see you guys supporting a Poor People's Movement independent of the Democratic Party. That's it. I'm in trouble. And Howie was the only candidate on the Homeless Marathon's show yesterday.
Out of 21 invited.
Out of 21 invited candidates in our country to talk about homelessness. No, you said anti-poverty, but right now what's